Well, hello again, my friends, and welcome once more to the Invisible College. This is going to be another of those kind of off-the-cuff lectures. I'm rather enjoying this new format and this new way of doing things with cards, rather than setting everything up on PowerPoint. I will do more of those PowerPoint lectures because it's very important to get things accurate, very exact when I'm sort of lecturing and teaching about things like the Bible, for example, or going into transformational lectures and all these other areas that I've been doing. But I think it's also worthwhile doing these kind of off-the-cuff lectures. And this one is called Message to America. But of course it applies to everyone else as well if you're watching. Because I mean, America is very, very important. It's a very important country. It's the dominant country, certainly in the West, although it's been challenged now in the East by China. What happens in America matters to the rest of us. And as you probably guess, if you're new to this channel, if you guess from the way I speak, I'm British. I live in England. So America's not my country, but I feel it's important that I say a few words to you Americans, because I hold you very dear in my heart. I've been to America quite a number of times, and I've spent some time there. So you do matter to me, and you matter to the world greatly, not least because if America falls, the rest of us go down with you. So it's pertinent to discuss that now. But before we go into that, I just wanted to say a few words. You probably noticed I've been wearing a tie for the last couple of lectures. And this is because I was given this tie by an unknown benefactor from the channel, someone who's watched me on the channel, I guess. And they give me this very nice Hermes tie. My daughter, who's a fashion model, she tells me it's not pronounced Hermes, it's pronounced Hermes. Okay, so I have an Hermes tie, very expensive, and given to me anonymously by someone from the channel, I guess. And I'd like to say thank you. And I'd love to hear from you so I could actually thank you personally, if you want to reveal yourself. But anyway, so I thought I'd wear the tie, for at least some of my lectures. And, perhaps it was a message to smarten up a bit, I don't know. Anyway, there we go. Now, where's my reading glasses? I always need those. My eyesight's not that brilliant these days. But there we go. Right, so message to America and anyone else who wants to listen in, because it is actually widely applicable, not just to America, but it is, some of the things I'm going to be saying are very specific for America. Now, in this lecture, I'm going to be talking about esotericism versus New Age falsehood. And my primary message is to provide solid, detailed researches and knowledge to bring back those lost in cults and fantasies to false teachings. And what's my background for being able to say this? Yes, I'm a Christian, but I'm also an esotericist, and I have been all my adult life. I've studied all those things. The teachings of India, the teachings of Persia, Egypt, Greece. I've studied all those things, and a long time ago, back in 1972. I made a pilgrimage to Israel. My friend and I, we went by bicycle. I've talked about this before. And I was there in search of the truth. I wanted to know, because I've been brought up as a Christian, as a Roman Catholic actually. And I wanted to know the truth. Is there anything in this? And anyway, I like to see it with my own eyes. So I went round there and, I found the usual things that Bethlehem and Jerusalem, and I went up to Galilee. I worked on a kibbutz there for a while, and then I was in Tel Aviv, and I was working there in a hostel, and I met someone, and that someone, I was planning to go on to India. I was very into yoga at the time, and I was planning to go on to India and find a nice guru. But this person said to me, she said, "Don't go there. I lived there in Delhi. My father was a professor, and we saw lots of young men like you coming through. And they didn't understand their own culture. They come to India, they don't understand that either. So they have two misunderstandings, only half understandings. And they end up totally confused. They end up mostly taking drugs and dropping out. So don't do that. Go back to your own country and study your own culture and get to understand it. And I thought, well, actually, that's not bad. That's not bad reasoning. So I came back to England, and I did. I started trying to understand a bit more about our own culture, Britain, which is obviously a Christian country, but on a much wider scale than just through the narrow perspective of the Roman Catholic Church, which I've been brought up in, and a particular kind of Roman Catholic Church in England, because of course England's a Protestant country, and there've been lots of Catholic martyrs back in the day, even in my own family actually, and so they have a very persecuted sense and passion to want to bring England back into the faith, as it were. Especially my father was like that. So I needed to understand a broader context, and I got to understand more about the esoteric side of Christianity. So that's part of it, but I was also very interested in things like ley lines and flying saucers, and crystal healing, and, dream telepathy, dream analysis, all of these things that we would now label New Age. I was into that, way back in the 70s. And I actually knew a lot of the people who were involved in this. To take the Edgar Cayce people, right? Now, I've lectured at Virginia Beach, the Edgar Cayce Center, many times, actually. They actually published a couple of my books. But I actually, back in 1974, I met Edgar Cayce's elder son, Hugh Lynn. Hugh Lynn Cayce died not that long afterwards. Very few people can say that they actually met Hugh Lynn. I did. And when he came to England, I was working for a New Age publisher at the time. And that New Age publisher, the Cayce people were thinking then about using them as their distributor. It didn't come to that in the end, but he came to our offices and I met him there. I was the sales manager. The small publishers. And I met his other son, Edgar Thomas, is it? Who wrote the book on Atlantis. And I met his grandson, who was running the show when I first started lecturing there. So I know the Cayce people very well. I've lectured there many times. I've lectured at Glastonbury in England, and at crop circle conferences, and at all sorts of New Age things they had going on there. I've met these people. I did know John Michel, who wrote The View Over Atlantis and City of Revelation, who started the whole sort of ley line passion back in the 70s. I'm quite friendly with him. We had a pint together and we chatted. We sent letters to each other. Nice man. I don't go along with the ley line thing, but there we go. He was a good bloke, and he, in his own way, he did write some very, very interesting things, and I shall be talking about some of that in my later lectures, particularly his book City of Revelation, which was a masterpiece, I have to say. But the thing is that there's a big difference between New Age and true esotericism. Now, true esotericism is a path where you're trying to find God, actually. If you're not trying to find God, you're very in great danger when you go down that path. Because believe me, there are all sorts of devils around. Now, I did a little lecture just recently on genies. Do you know what a genie is? It's actually a demon. That's what it is. Or as they call it in Greek, a daimon. Yeah, a daimon. And the word comes from Plato's works when he's talking about Socrates, who's a great teacher. And Socrates had a daimon who would whisper in his ear and tell him stuff. I've met quite a few clairvoyants in my time. I've actually been to spiritualist churches and sat there in the audience and watched some of these people performing. And I've met other ones who've given me private readings. Some good, some bad, some completely mixed up and crazy. But most of them, I have to tell you, do what they do because they have a daimon. And the daimon is reading you, is reading your aura, he's reading things in the book of life, and whispering it into the clairvoyant's ear, and the clairvoyant then says, oh yeah, tells you this, that, and you think, wow, this guy's so clever, he's so smart. No, he's not. He's just got a daimon whispering to him. And a very dangerous thing to do, by the way, to get hooked up with daimons, demons, familiars they call them. It's witchcraft, and witchcraft is all about working with demons. So keep away from it. If you think this is New Age, keep away from it, because it will drive you crazy and it will take your soul to hell. So don't go down that path. That is not genuine esotericism, genuine following the path. You need to be connecting with the angels. You need to be connecting with God. And the best way to do that, especially if you're a Westerner, is through Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's all in the Bible there. And you think, oh, boring old book, the Bible. Well, it's not when you actually read it. And you find out that there's all sorts of prophecies in there which have come true. For example, there's a prophecy in the Psalms of the crucifixion. And it's all written, by King David, who lived about 900 years before Jesus. And he describes in great detail the crucifixion. And then you go into the Gospels and you see the crucifixion and you hear Jesus' last words. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? And the people around them saying, well, God's forsaken him. Is he calling on Elijah? Elijah? No, it's not. He's actually quoting that psalm. And once you put the two together, you realise that this was a prophecy actually of the crucifixion. And that's in the Jewish Old Testament. Yeah, it's in all the Jewish, they don't call it the Bible, they call it the Torah, and I don't know what the other names are, but it's in their books. It's not in the Christian books, this psalm, and yet it was fulfilled in the Gospels. So you begin to understand there is a plan. There is a plan for the salvation of mankind. And why do we need a plan for the salvation of mankind? Because we're stuck here in the equivalent of the Matrix. This world that you see around you, it looks so real and so purposeful to us. And we see the line of progress, steam trains in Victorian times, we get into electric trains, and they had Bakelite telephones back in the war, but now we have mobile phones and our cars. Well, we're starting to get away from the petrol ones into the electric ones now, aren't we? So we see this line of progress and we think, fantastic, man is the crown of creation. Yeah, that's Ficino claimed that. He was a philosopher writing and working in Florence back in the Renaissance. Arsilio Ficino. Man is the crown of creation. He actually got the sense of that from the Hermetica, but it wasn't meant to be interpreted quite that way. So what was I going to say? So this is the difference between esotericism and New Age falsehood. Now there's lots of cults out there, and my work primarily is for the people stuck in those cults. I want to get you out of there. I want to rescue you, to bring you back to the true way of esotericism as opposed to cultism, as opposed to witchcraft, which has been very damaging both for people personally and for your country, America. America is not meant to be a home for witchcraft. And you say, I love witchcraft. It's wonderful. We do these spells. We do good work. We're nice people. Yeah, but it's basically powered by demons, and it leads you down the wrong road. Now, how can I say that? Well, I got caught up in a cult here in England back in the 70s, and it very nearly destroyed me. It's not witchcraft. Well, it's not really. But it had a teacher, and this teacher, I thought he was the Messiah at the time, because he had powers, and he could create atmospheres at will, and people were spellbound, truly spellbound, and you could feel these energies, and people would come into this cult, and they might be all spotty and tired and haggard, And after a few weeks, the energies there would heal them, and their faces would glow, and they would look so well. You think, wow, this is great. It's not that way. What it is they were being given something as a hook. It's the honey trap, and they were being drawn in, and once they were pulled in, then they were slaves to it. They were earning their money and paying vast amounts to it. And the leader was strutting around like a turkey cock and boasting. And you think, well, what's going on here? You know, it's supposed to be the Messiah. And I eventually saw through that. And I went through torment. I was attacked by, the devil. And I'm not going to describe exactly what that was like, but I had to run, literally run. And I went into a church and I prayed, and I was released from it. And I realized that was a big lesson. It was one that I was meant to go through. I'll tell you how in a little while. But it was one I was meant to go through to understand that position. So if you're someone who is stuck in a cult, I want to help you. I want to help you to get out of it. I want to help you save your soul, because you're in great danger, actually. You might not realize, you might think, well, I'm wearing nice robes and I've got my worry beads and, I burn incense and light candles and I do healing. You think, I'm doing the right thing. Well, you're not if you're not worshipping God and you're repenting for your own sins and being humble. That's one of the requirements. You've got to be humble and recognize that this creation was not just there arbitrarily, it was created. And we are trapped here in the matrix on this planet Earth. Matrix actually means mother. The matrix, the matriarch. We're trapped here in this planet Earth. And I've talked about that a little bit in some of my other lectures, that Eve, Adam and Eve, one meaning of Eve is the mother of everything. And Eve is actually Mother Nature. And Adam is attracted to nature, and nature's attracted to Adam, and he gets pulled down here. And in their embrace, and he can't escape. So this is what we are. We're trapped here. We're trapped here going life after life after life. I'm sorry, one life Christians who think you only have one shot. It's not actually true. If you think about it, why would God keep sending soul after soul after soul after soul to have them all trapped here and die and go to hell? He wouldn't, would he? The thing is that you're going around learning lessons over and over and over again, but you can't get free because you've always got this karma. You need something from outside to rescue you and take you out, and that something was the rescue plan that's in the Bible, leading to the crucifixion, death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the overthrow of Satan, who is the prince of this world, and eventually the millennial rule of Christ, which is coming. We're very close to it now. And a lot of what you're seeing in America now is actually the tribulation before that time. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in due course. I'm going into things that's perhaps a little deep, what we're going to do in this lecture. So who am I? Well, now 72, I've been involved in esotericism all my adult life. Yes. I've dedicated my life to finding the truth, to searching for the truth, and I've been to searching in Turkey, in Israel, in Egypt, throughout Europe. I've been to America because I'm focused on the Western tradition, the Western ways, rather than the Eastern ways. Now, they might have ways which are good, I don't know, but for us, the true master is Jesus Christ. And this is what we need to get back to. And we've been driven away from it. People like me were driven away from it because we didn't like the priesthood. I couldn't stand priests. Still can't. All that dressing up in funny robes and big hats and pomp and circumstance. It doesn't do it for me. I want to know the true way of self-development and transformation. I can't see the link between all of that, all these marble staircases and fancy things, and the simple carpenter's son walking around in Galilee, where I've been. You know, I've walked in his footsteps, and there's a disconnect there between this simple man who had tremendous charisma and could heal people, raise people from the dead, and these guys, some of them perverts who abuse choir boys. And that's another thing I'm going to come to in a minute, is about perversion in America. But we'll leave that for just now. Anyway, so I've been on this path searching all my adult life, and I've read hundreds of books. I know all about these crystal things. I can cast a horoscope if I want to. Yeah, I don't anymore, but I could if I wanted to. I can read palms. Yeah, I can read the tarot cards. I know how to do all that, but that's not the way. That's not what you need. Yeah, what you need is to find the true path, which is to understand that there is a rescue plan for us, and that you're going to be brought out of here, and the devil is going to be thrown out. Now, you don't believe, when I talk about the devil, you've got to understand that there is a fallen angel. Actually, there's a bunch of them. There's a very high one who fell, called Lucifer, and thrown out of heaven, came down to earth and took it over. We will talk maybe more about that in other lectures, but you've got to understand we're not just talking about evil in the sense of the opposite of good. Jung was strong on this, you know. He kept saying that evil is not just the lack of good. It is actually something driven in its own right by evil individuals. And this angel is evil. Yeah, and he's wanting to do evil. He's an evil doer. And his evil doing, the trouble is that he's very clever. He's very smart and he's powerful. And if you try and stand up against him on your own, he's more powerful than you. You need to be connected to the power of Jesus Christ. Brought this power into the world. It's sometimes called the Holy Grail. He brought this power into the world, the silver light. And the devil cannot stand up to that. He has to run. He has to flee. This is why you have this whole thing about exorcisms, bell, book and candle. You hold the crucifix up at him. Ah! Yeah? It's true. It's not just a crucifix you're holding up. It's you're showing your connection with the power of Jesus Christ and what he'd done. And you can throw out devils in his name. They run. There are plenty of exorcists around, you know. And people who are caught up in cults need to understand that they can get out. They don't have to have their lives destroyed. And I'm thinking here of cults like Scientology, for instance. You know, a very wicked cult set up in California, done a huge amount of damage in the world, and especially in California. Now, it's easy for me to just point the finger and say California is evil, right? All those Democrats are evil people. No, they're probably very good people, actually. It's just that they're pulled in the wrong direction. One of the things that I wanted to say about America is that you're going to have to find a healing between the two polarities, because the devil plays on this. He wants to start wars. That's it's one of his modus operandis, is to start wars. And at the moment he's trying to engineer a civil war in America. You don't want that. It's not going to do your country any good at all, any more than the last civil war did. You need to find ways of rejecting the devil, rejecting what he's trying to do, and to remember the motto that goes with your country, which is "In God we trust." Yeah, you've got to come back to that. In God we trust. And I don't care if at the moment you're a Hare Krishna person or you're wearing Buddhist robes or whatever. You need to remember that there is a God, and that God is not just an abstraction either, like the devil. It's not just an abstraction of truth or an abstraction of beingness or something. It is an intelligence, a mind. Yeah, and just as we have a body and a brain, and our mind works through that, God has a universe, and he works through that. That's all, you know. But he is a being and a brain. He is an intelligence working through that brain, and we can become reconnected. That's what religio means, religion, religio, rejoined together, connected back to recognize our position within that whole framework. Because unless you know what you're here for, or who you are, yeah, what your nature is, you can't be happy. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? That unless you understand your talents, your position, what you're here for, your destiny, how can you be happy? You can't. You can have all the money in the world. You can be like Jeff Bezos. I bet Jeff Bezos is not a happy man. I bet you. He's got a big, huge yacht, right? He owns Amazon and, huge income. He's really pissed off there because Elon Musk has got more money than he has now. Yeah? What a way to live, You don't need all that money. You need some. You don't need to be uber rich. And this is the problem with the elites. Their greed consumes them. It consumes them to the point where they've completely lost themselves and they're desperately unhappy and they're living their lives. Yeah, Jeff Bezos, I bet he's really pissed off that his wife has left him and probably taking half his fortune. I don't know, maybe they had a prenup, I don't know. But you cannot find happiness unless you are connected. Only those who are connected are truly happy. And that's what you have to do. And religio, reconnect. And that's what the whole path is about. Now then, I've got a few other things to say here. I wanted to talk about, and I've digressed a bit. Yes, I wanted to talk about the first time I came to America back in 1973. I went to Oregon, and I went there. I had a girlfriend at the time, American, I'd met in Greece, and she invited me to come back. She'd gone back home to Oregon, invited me to come there, see her, and to meet her father, who she said could help me to discover what my past lives were. And, I was a young man. I wanted to know. People talk about past lives. I didn't know anything about past lives. I wanted to find out what my past lives are. And she said, he's got a technique, and you will work and you will find out what your past lives were. So I thought, great, I'm going to do this. So I went out there, and he got me lying down on the couch, and a sort of mild kind of hypnosis. I'm going to go into how it's done. But anyway, my mind went back. I went back, first of all, through this life, and I went back to my childhood, and back to when I was a tiny toddler, and I could smell the smells that were so familiar from those days, and see the things, and the house that I lived in when I was probably only about one, and I could see it perfectly, and then I carried on going back, and suddenly I found myself outside, but my body, and had the moment when I'd come into my mother's body to be born, when that happened. And then I went back beyond that, and suddenly I found myself outside planet Earth, out among the stars. This is not what I was expecting. I was expecting to go back and find out whether I was a duke or king or great adventurer, or what was I in the past. I was very interested to know that. Actually, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you're doing now. But I was very interested to know about the past, but it wasn't like that. And then my vision changed, and I had a whole series of apocalyptic visions, just like St. John describes, in the Revelation. I've been doing lots of lectures lately on the book of Revelation. You probably watched some of them, I don't know. But anyway, I went back. I saw all these apocalyptic visions of what's going to happen at the end of the world, end of the age, secula secularum. I talked about that in the last lecture, I think. But one of the visions that I saw was of a white house, sort of like a farmhouse, painted all white with boarding, clapboard and a picket fence, all white. And sitting on its roof was an eagle. Yeah. And then as I watched, the eagle was transformed into a cockerel. And the cockerel lost its feathers. Then I was kind of told, with sort of commentary that went with it, that this was America. And it symbolized how America was going to be stripped of its pride. It would be like a boasting cockerel with no feathers. And I thought, oh my God, I better warn everyone, And I thought, this is going to happen now. This is happening. Of course, it wasn't. It was actually a forecast of what we're seeing now, where you in America have now got, I don't know how it's happened, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but somehow or other you've ended up with a president who's an empty shell. He is the cockerel with no feathers. And you find yourself stripped of your power. And you had the chaotic thing happening in Afghanistan, where you spent all that money, all that treasure, trying to help the Afghan people to become more like yourselves, I guess. But educating the girls, stopping people from forcing them to marry at 12 or whatever. You were trying to do what you thought was right. Yeah, it was not done very nicely. And the problem is that you have this military-industrial complex that wants to start wars all the time. Why? Because unless you have wars, weapons don't get used up. Simple as that. Yeah, if you're a person who's selling tanks, you want tanks to be destroyed so you can sell some more, don't you? If you're a person who sells missiles, you want those missiles to be used in action so you can sell more missiles. It's simple business, isn't it? And this, unfortunately, is one of the traps that America's fallen into, is it's been taken over by people who make money out of war. It's been happening through history, actually, but it's particularly bad at the moment. And I guess it's probably the same thing in Russia and China, Well, actually, in China, I guess the state owns everything. It's not so much the individuals as the state. But there is a sense that there are warmongers, and they want to make wars so that they can make money and become rich, or even richer than they already are. But that's part of it. But the other part of it, of course, is that a lot of these people are actually satanic. Yeah, they've been overshadowed. They think they're practicing some kind of meditation, I'll empty my mind of everything, I'll sit like the Buddha and I'll be enlightened. But empty their mind, and a demon pops in. And the demon says, oh, there's a nice empty shell, I'll jump in there. Be aware that this happens. Be aware. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, as I say, but this is the truth about this world. And it's not the first time, it's happened over and over again. But we have to try to rescue ourselves and rescue things. And America needs to turn back. Say, well, this cockerel thing, this bald cockerel, that's not us. That's not America. You've got to say that. You've got to stand up and say, this is not America. We're not like this. We believe in God. In God we trust. And you've got to turn round and turn to your cult leaders and those who are oppressing you and your media, your corrupt media. I've watched them on television. We get feeds here on YouTube. We can watch them. And you can see clips from all of these different CNN, NBC, ABC, all the rest of them. And the people standing there saying the things, they all repeat themselves. They say almost exactly the same words. So they're all singing from the same hymn sheet because they're the same bloody words coming out of their mouths, the same lies. And this is the other thing I was saying about the devil. The devil tells lies all the time to deceive. And you have been deceived, many of you, by the lies being spewed out daily by the media. You ought to turn away from that and say, this is not America. This is not us. Yeah? We are God's nation. We are the nation that is put here and born from Britain. Actually, you were born from us. It was a traumatic birth. Not very nice for us either, thank you. But we were kind of tied up with other things anyway. But the situation is that you were created out of us to be something special. Yeah? And I don't know, well, I will talk about this some other time, but there were actually prophecies in Britain that we needed to create America. We needed to create the new Atlantis, as we called it, as a counterbalance to the power of Spain. That was why you were formed initially. That was why people went out initially. I'm not talking about the Mayflower, but there were other people who went before that to America. That's how you came about. And then you were in a position that you could separate and form this nation under God. Yeah, we're also under God, but in a different way. But you are the tribe of Manasseh in particular, and you have a duty and a destiny that is Christian. And if you run away from that, if you go and play around with cults from the East, if you go and sacrifice, you start playing around with the Ouija boards and smoking pot, that's the other thing about America. You've got this huge drug problem. We haven't got it as bad here, but believe me, we have got a drug problem, but it's nothing like the scale that you have. Nothing like. Where people are drugged out and all sorts of things. And I saw this even back in 1973 when I first went there. First went to America. Not the people in Oregon, but I met lots of other people, kind of hippie people. I was a bit of a hippie myself at the time. And I saw how they all had stashes of pot in their freezers or fridges. Yeah, they all did. And drugs were being peddled on the streets everywhere, even then, even in small towns. And I don't do drugs, but I was shocked and I was horrified by what I saw, and it's much worse now. And this again is the corruption of the devil. He wants you to be drugged out. He wants to take away your strength. He wants to corrupt your youth. He's doing everything in his power to make you believe that what is wrong is right. What is immoral is moral. I'm not going to get into the political side of this because I know, I don't want to fall out with YouTube over this. Probably might anyway. But you have got to turn your backs on this drug culture, especially in California and places like that, which have corrupted you and destroyed what should be. You're living in Eden in California, and yet you got filth in the streets. You got, thousands of people homeless, sleeping under, awful conditions. You got people, mugging everyone in the street. That's not California. That's not the California I saw back in the early 70s. It was the Golden State. But it's because you've fallen away. You've got caught up in all these cults and all these New Age trickery. And you need to get back. Now, while I'm on this subject, I've been watching some videos by a guy called Mario Morello. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a preacher. He comes from San Francisco originally. And he sets up a big tent. And he's a good old style preacher. But what's amazing about this guy is that he actually does have the power to heal. It's not him personally, because of who he is and how he has given himself to God. He's like one of the apostles. And people, their sight is restored to them. The people who are paralyzed get up and walk. It's, I've seen footage of this on television. It's actually absolutely amazing. And he's been going around with this big tent and people are flocking. And he's particularly interested in California and New York State. Because as he says, these are the places which the devil has got the most control over. And therefore, if you're going to do a crusade, don't do it in the Bible Belt. Do it where it's needed. Go to the places where the people are hungry and starving and they need help. And he's been going around there. And I recommend you, if you live and you hear about one of these crusades, these tent crusades, I'll put a link in my description box to how you can find this. Now, I'm not a Bible Belt preacher, thumping the Bible that way. I'm into analysing things and finding the truth through words and the mind particularly. That's my way, and I'm trying to bring people along with that. But there are these preachers who are working through the heart, And I've got huge respect for this man particularly. And there's some of the others I like a lot as well, like Sid Roth. I like him. I think he's a good soul, a good man. And they can give you encouragement when you need it, that you're not forgotten. You're not. God loves America, you know, and he wants you back, and he wants you healed. But you're going through this tribulation because the tribulation, it means separating. They used to whip grain with a big whip with three flat belts on it to separate the grain from the chaff. And then they could sweep it all up, throw it in the air, and the wind would blow away the chaff and leave the grain. That's what a threshing floor is for. So this is what's happening to you. It's to separate out the evil ones from the good. And it's a time of trial. Trial and tribulation, we use those words, don't we? That's what you're going through at the moment. You've got an empty shell president, you've got corrupt media, you've got big business who are taking the money from everyone's pockets and putting it into their own. You've got an arms industry that's run amok, starting wars everywhere. Yeah, and you've got the people saying that boys can become girls and girls can become boys, which you know is wrong and not truthful. Men and women's changing rooms, all of that. You know this is crazy. There are some crazies among you who think this is fine, and they're being allowed to shout loudly. Yeah, all these SJW people. You've got to turn around and say to them, "F*** off." Yeah, I'm sorry to use the Anglo-Saxon. But sometimes in Britain we are very crude, you know, in our language. You know, we use these Anglo-Saxon expletives when it's needed. Not all the time, but when it's needed. And there are times when you have people who are trying to tell you that white is black and black is white. You've got to turn around and say, look, you're an idiot. You should be in a funny farm. Yeah? Because 9 times out of 10, it's a demon speaking through them anyway. 9 times out of 10. And you need to refute the devil, refute those demons, those genies that are working through them, through their witchcraft, and say to them, I'm sorry, I don't deal with that. You're wrong. And in God we trust, not in your craziness. And if you do that in the name of God, you will find that they will melt away, and they will cease to be the problem that they are to you. America can be restored, and it will be restored if you turn back to God. As long as you carry on down this course of craziness, you're going to be a plucked cockerel ready to be stuffed and put in the oven. Yeah? That's how the Chinese are seeing you right now. They're laughing at you. They're laughing their socks off. Ha 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 ha! They've given us all their industry. They've given us all their technology. They've shown us how to make everything that they used to make. We can do it now without them. We can build ships very fast. We can build aeroplanes. We can build tanks. We're going to take over the world. Ha 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 ha! That's what they feel about you right now. And you've got to turn around and you've got to say, in God we trust. This is a nation under God. And we will not allow this to happen. Not to us, not to our allies. So I think at that point, let's have a little look at my notes here. So I've written here, America is now divided and in danger. This is the work of the devil and his demons. They have taken over politics, the media, and a greedy elite. They want to create wars to destroy your America. Yeah. So I just wanted to say here, this last thing, a message of hope. You are not forgotten by God, and this is the tribulation in action. Remember the words, in God we trust. Great times are around the corner, and believe me, they're better times than you've ever known. Better times than we've ever known. And I'm going to also do talk like this for Britain, and maybe for some other countries too, and see where we go from here. But we have got to wake up and get out and stop being so slothful and stop expecting everything to be served up to us on a plate. You've been given so much, America. You've been given this wonderful country, this wonderful land with huge prospects. And now you've got to turn around and you've got to say, thank you, God, for what you gave us. I'm sorry for what we've done. and we want to come back. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak again.